Hello, this is Alex from Mr. Retro Central, and it's going to be a very special episode today because I've got two of my best friends right here. I've got the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, and I've got my Super Nintendo. I just wanted to have a bit of a battle today between these two and talk to you guys about it. You know, a bit of a Sega Genesis or Mega Drive versus a Super Nintendo episode. So here we are. Originally, the Mega Drive or Genesis came out. It came out before the Super Nintendo. Now, if you're wondering why I'm saying Mega Drive or Genesis, if you don't already know, originally in Japan when it was released in 1988, it was called the Sega Mega Drive. And then when they released it in America in 1989, name Mega Drive was already taken, so they had to change the name to Genesis. But later on in the years, you know, through 1990, through Europe and Australia and all the other PAL regions, they kept the original Mega Drive name. So if you hear me referring to both of them, you know that's what I'm talking about. Now the Super Nintendo did come out a bit later. In Japan it was released in 1990, in America in 91, Australia, Europe, all the other PAL regions in 92. So the Genesis or Mega Drive actually had a bit of an advantage because it came out a bit beforehand. And of course they had, you know, a bigger game library and all that, and a few more stuff out and all that kind of stuff out. Now this is actually a Mega Drive 2 I've got here. I don't have a Mega Drive 1. It's a bit bigger than this. It looks different. You can look it up on the internet and see other pictures and stuff like that. But I actually like the size, the look of the Mega Drive 2, so that's why I got it. Now this is the Super Nintendo, but it's the PAL Super Nintendo. It's the same design as the Super Famicom. In America, it's a bit different. I don't like the NTSC Super Nintendos. They look rubbish to me. I don't like them. I like the PAL. It looks a lot nicer. Okay, so with the Sega Mega Drive, the games on them are backwards compatible with the Sega Master System, where of course the Super Nintendo with the NES games, it's not. I think there are some adapters out there to make it, but straight off the bat, the Sega was. Now, with the add-ons and stuff with them, there is expansion ports on both of them underneath. Now, the Sega Mega Drive one is located here. Just take off that plate and you can get to it. Now, with the Mega Drive, they had multiple expansions for it, like the Sega CD, which would be an attachment you sit on. You can use, you know, CDs and stuff like that. And there was like a 32 times bit which can go into the top. But the Super Nintendo didn't really have like any use for its expansion port. Like, it had it there, and if you look up on the internet, they had ideas for stuff to use it for, but they never really implemented it. And I thought it was a bit, you know, upsetting, because even with I think the Nintendo 64, they didn't even use it much, or even the NES, they didn't use it much. I know with the GameCube later on, they did use it as a Game Boy Advance adapter, but that was about it. And I was kind of disappointed because, you know, you've got the technology there, you know, why don't you use it? But that's all in the past now. Now, the controllers, of course, are a bit different with the Mega Drive than with the Super Nintendo. You got your standard buttons, of course. But there's one key thing I wanted to point out. With the Mega Drive, they originally had a 3-button control. Of course, you have your D-pad, your start button, and then you have, you know, your 3 buttons here. Now, if you're wondering why this controller looks different, this is another controller they eventually released because, you know, with big popular games like Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, 3 buttons wasn't enough, so they had to release a 6-button version for, of course, you know, your kicks, your punches, and all that kind of stuff. Now, with the Super Nintendo, the Super Nintendo actually had, which the Sega didn't. Of course, you got your 4 buttons here, and your D-pad, your start and your select, but they actually had shoulder buttons, which, of course, the Sega didn't. Also, as well, the controller was a lot more smaller, and I personally think the Super Nintendo controller looks more aesthetic than the Mega Drive. It's a bit big and chunky. Even the newer controller is a bit smaller. The colors on this, you know, the button colors, you know, everything, I personally like it a lot more. Now, of course, overall with the consoles, right, you know, you got your black of, you know, your Sega Mega Drive and your red, right? But a lot of people are like, oh yeah, it doesn't yellow out, like, because the Super Nintendo, if you leave it in the sun or, you know, ultraviolet, you know, light, the actual plastic they use is ABS plastic, and it had special stuff inside it to prevent against fire and, you know, high temperatures. So, you know, when it gets into contact, it has a chemical reaction, making it yellow. But it is completely reversible. You can look up videos and stuff on the internet. I may do one later on in the future, how to professionally clean it and get rid of the yellowing. But for now, that's how it is. My actual SNES is actually in really good condition. I look after all my stuff, as you all should. It's very important to keep, you know, piece of history with us all. Now with the Mega Drive, the black can fade, and obviously you can get marks on it and stuff like that. But of course it doesn't yellow, so that was the upside to the Mega Drive that the Super Nintendo didn't. Another thing as well, the games. When you buy games for the Super Nintendo, originally they came out in a box like this. You know, this is Harvest Moon I've got here. You know, you open it, you know, you got some more cardboard, you know, the cartridge sitting in there like that. You know, there's, you know, you can't really, this is probably like one of my only decent original boxes I've got left, and you can see, of course, there's, you know, damage, scratch, you know, cracks and stuff. It's fading, you know, it's alright, it'll last a while, but it's not sturdy. And I know that's a big problem with, especially, I know a lot of people have complained about it, you know, with the cardboard boxes. The cardboard boxes actually have like a certain chemical in them as well, which can make your cartridges go yellow. So, you know, it wasn't too nice, but and they don't last as long. You know, you always see cartridges just lying around by themselves and all that kind of stuff. But with the Genesis, they came with a hard case, with your cartridges, of course, already inside. You know, I've got Sonic 2 here. And, you know, it came with it inside. I don't have the book, but the book would go there. You know, and it just sat in there, and you could preserve them longer and better than the Super Nintendo's cardboard boxes. Now, with the cartridges themselves, I've noticed, here I've got Alex Kidd, one of the greatest games of all time. The actual, like the sticker on the front, they don't last up or hold up as well as the Super Nintendo ones. So I've got this one here, and I'll just show you. This is a custom case you can get. I will be making another video explaining these cases, where to get them from, and how awesome these guys are. But for now, this is Super Mario World, and this originally was bundled with the Super Nintendo when you buy it brand new. Now, with this case, you know, it sits in there nicely, but the cartridges themselves, you know, as I was saying before, I look after all my stuff. The stickers, they last a lot better than, of course, you know, the Mega Drive or Genesis ones. And yeah, they are a little bit bigger, but they're both about the same weight. You know, of course, black, you know, grey. But, and even the backs of them here. Now, the NTSC cartridges look a bit different. I like the more sleek, round, power look of all my stuff. And, it's a bit more information. Originally, you know, the prices when they were released and stuff, I know the Super Nintendo roughly went for about, you know, $199, where the Sega Genesis originally went for something like $189, I don't know, so $190, so $10 difference. But I know they originally wanted to sell it for the same price as the Super Nintendo, but they managed to do it a bit cheaper, which was cool for everyone. Nowadays, if you go to your retro shops or look online or stuff like that, the Super Nintendos actually still do hold their value a lot better than, of course, the Mega Drive or Genesis. Like, you can pick up a Mega Drive or Genesis like this for, you know, maybe just the console, the power pack, you know, one controller for maybe like $50. You know, whereas Super Nintendo in this good condition, you know, you'd be paying like $180 for it. So there's pros and cons to both of them. But one thing with the Super Nintendo I did like a lot was, which it wasn't really an expansion like as for it, but it was an adapter, which probably helped them pave the way a lot, and I will still use it today, is the Super Game Boy. Now, I do have another video where I'm reviewing the Super Game Boy, but So I won't go into too much detail today, but the Super Game Boy was awesome because, you know, if you still got some of your old Game Boy Color games, you know, you can use them and still play them, and it's just, you know, it's awesome. You can play, you know, your Game Boy Color games on a big TV, you know, not like that little Game Boy screen, and, you know, it's awesome. Now, of course, on both consoles, you got, you know, your power, your reset, but with the Mega Drive or Genesis, you just really shoved it in there and like kind of, you know, pulled it out, you know, and yeah, that's alright, but, you know, if you're borrowing someone's console or someone else is using it, some people, you know, of course everyone, you know, values their stuff and looks after it better than other people would, and be able to pull it off and pull it out, okay, yeah, then that's how they designed it, but I like the restraint where if you put it in, you can't take it out. You have to actually press the eject. It also saves, you know, bumping it or knocking it over or, you know, whatever the case is. So, you know, I like that feature on it a lot better. But another thing I want to talk to you about as well is the big wars between them. Now, yes, as I was saying before, the Mega Drive or Genesis was released earlier, but the Super Nintendo still won, you know, the 16-bit, because they're both 16-bit architecture. They won the 16-bit wars and sold a lot more copies. It was like, I think a total of like 40 million copies, you know, worldwide, you know, where the other one, the Genesis, wasn't. I think the Genesis sold maybe about 20 million, 20 point something million in America, where the Super Nintendo, which was out for, you know, less because, you know, younger than the Genesis, sold about 23, maybe close to 24 million. So of course they made more sales, but originally when it first came out, the Genesis was rivaled against the NES, so it's really unfair, you know, 16-bit versus an 8-bit console, you know. It's just, the graphics of course are going to be a lot better and everything's going to be a lot faster because it's different architecture. But it's good that they came back really quickly with this and, you know, destroyed them. So, but yeah, I don't really know much more to talk about. Just overall, the consoles, they both look amazing. And I will continue to cherish these and use these. But underneath the top, you know, you can buy, you know, different stuff to the, you know, PAL versions are a bit different to the NTSC, different ports, depending on how new your console is as well. You know, stuff are different at the back. But you know, there's always big wars between, you know, Sonic and Mario. Of course, you know, the poster boys of their consoles. But it's good nowadays, you see them, you know, they're working together, even though Sega lost the wars. But yeah, you know, of course Sonic and Mario go to Winter Olympics. But yeah, I recommend getting, you know, one or both of these like me, you know, keeping them, playing them. You can pick up games for them really good, really cheap, and they're both, you know, incredible and awesome. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about this. If you have any more questions or you guys want to, you know, put your word in or anything, you know, hit me up in the comments, you know, below. You know, let me know what you think. You know, I'm very active with my YouTube account. You know, I'll write back to you almost straight away. You know, pretty close to it. You know, have a bit of a chat. Tell me what you think's better. And yeah, thanks for watching.